day, everyone. I'm Mary Grace Onyola, and my report is all about leadership skills and dealing with change. Subtopic: Interpersonal skills. The content of my reports are negotiation, problem solving and critical thinking, decision making, and facilitation. Let's start with defining what negotiation is. A lot of authors had defined what negotiation is, but we'll be focusing on these five authors. Let's start with William Ury, and he defined negotiation as the process of back and forth communication aimed at reaching agreement with others when some of your interests are shared and some are opposed. Robert Maddox defined negotiation as a process we use to satisfy our needs when someone else controls what we want. While Jan Patrick Dolan defined effective negotiation is working side by side with another party or parties to achieve mutually beneficial and satisfactory results. On the other hand, Gerard Nirenberg defined negotiation as people are negotiating whenever they exchange ideas with the intention of changing relationships and whenever they confer for agreement. And the last one is Mark Cohenfield, and he defined negotiation as a process through which parties determine whether an acceptable agreement can be reached. It is an informational process through which information is exchanged, evaluated, and used as the basis for decision making. These varying definitions do have some important points of commonality. For example, the parties involved in a conflict or disagreement will have some basis of agreement or common interest even though they are opposition on some important issues. Resolution of differences occurs through ongoing dialogue to discover shared interest. As time progresses, each party learns more about the other as well as about themselves. This facilitates the likelihood of making a change from the positions taken initially. A cooperative approach to negotiation shifts the interactive process from a stance against each other across the table to a posture that is side by side against the problem. As defined by the five authors, we could say that negotiation is very vital when it comes to solving conflicts within working environment. Lahat naman ng issues, problems, conflicts within the company can be resolved when both sides, yung may conflict, mag-agree na pag-usapan and mag-share ng ideas on how to resolve the issues and provide better options to avoid conflicts, and in the future they could use it to have harmonious relationship with each other. Okay. After defining what negotiation is, let us discuss the two different levels of negotiation. Let's start with casual or informal negotiation. It is defined as daily activity of resolving differences that constantly arise at work, at home, and in social setting. Most of the disagreement and conflict we have with others is not planned. Lagi naman. Hindi naman lagi napaghahandaan yung mga conflict na nangyayari sa work, sa bahay, or kahit saan pa man. Minsan akala mo okay kayo during meeting, but then in the middle of the meeting, magkakaroon ng disagreement, and then that's where the conflict starts. So that's how you define casual or informal negotiation. And if it is not always important to say who is right, but rather you need to think about how the issue is, how can you resolve the issue, or you should always question yourself, how do we prepare for these generally unplanned encounters so that we more effectively meet our needs without becoming adversarial? In reality, relationships aren't easy. Kahit saan pa man, mag-asawa, working mates, best friend, and kahit anong relationship, never nagiging madali ang pagsasama. So, lahat tayo nakaka-experience ng conflict sa buhay. So, instead of focusing on the problem, we should at least think of ways how to resolve it. So, in the future, we could avoid it na. Okay. The second levels of negotiations is structured or formal negotiation. Structured or formal negotiation is a more planned process that attempts to resolve conflicts between individuals or organizations at a more significant level. Labor management issues, intergovernmental conflicts, important contracts, environmental and planning issues, and problems between local government and businesses are examples of difficult situations that may require structured negotiation. Itong second level of negotiation, ito naman yung mga mas kinakailangan ng matinding pag-negotiate. Hindi lang to yung simpleng away, simpleng conflict within your workmates. This is a labor management issue, important contracts, environmental and planning issues na dapat mas define, mas may ang tawag doon, dapat may preparation, dapat mas pinaglalaanan ng time para makapag-produce ng mas magandang resolution. Okay, let's proceed with our next content of my report, and that is problem solving and critical thinking. Let's define problem solving. It is the act of defining a problem, determining the cause of the problem, identifying, prioritizing, and selecting alternatives for a solution, and implementing a solution. As we all know, before we can solve a problem, we have to first define or state what the problem is. After stating the problem, we should always part of problem solution to determine the cause of the problem. Ano ba yung naging reason bakit nag-exist yung problems? Once we identify the problem is, we have to prioritize the solution, and we have to provide not just a solution but also selective or alternative solutions. And last thing is, if I've defined the problem and determined the cause of the problem and identify the solution, we should prioritize and provide alternative solution and implement the solution as well. Let's talk about critical thinking. It is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflections, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. Critical thinking is not a skill that everyone has, but it is a skill that everyone can develop. Everyone has the ability to think, of course, since it's a human nature to do so. But much of our thinking tends to be locked in past prejudice, biases, subjective perceptions, and the lack of appropriate information. Critical thinking, on the other hand, involves a trained and disciplined approach to using the mind to process information and convert it to relevant knowledge. As the level of complexity in the economy and the community rises,
the need for critical thinking is all the more important. Critical thinking and problem solving are basically synonymous. Critical thinking involves conceptualizing an issue or problem, knowing where to look for relevant data and information, knowing how to analyze and synthesize the data and information, and then using it to make a decision that improves the situation. Effective leading always involves the solving of problems. One is not doing good One is not doing good critical thinking if one isn't solving any problems. Good leaders are able to anticipate problems often before they happen and can define them clearly and precisely. They are then capable of thinking open mindedly about the various alternative solutions to problems and then work to develop ways to prevent the problems from happening or escalating. Thinking our way through a problem to a solution then is critical thinking. Steps in effective problem solving approach. Step 1, we have to define the problem. A problem is basically a dilemma with no apparent way out. In human relationship, problems tend to occur as a result of opposition of ideas, goals, or needs. The first step of any effort to mitigate this opposition should always be to get agreement on a clear statement of the problem. A good problem definition states the current situation and the desired situation. For example, a responsive time for prospect inquiries over the internet has not been acceptable to these customers, and we need to meet their expectation for a quick and appropriate response. Okay, a first step in effective problem solving approach states that we should define the problem. Before we can solve before we can provide a
Solution to a problem, we should always um, state what the problem is. Kasi doon natin malalaman kung ano yung solution na ipoprovide natin. The second step is collecting information and diagnosis. Okay, this steps mm, collecting information and diagnosis. It's about good research and information gathering. It is always the key to defining and ultimately resolving a problem or set of problems. It is important at an early stage in the process to learn as much as possible about the problem, including talking with those individuals involved and or familiar with the problem. Asking insightful questions can go a long way in gaining a better understanding. The second step just remind us that after we define what the problem is, we should gather the information from the parties involved. We should ask them how did the problem occurs. We should always ask the individuals that are part of the conflicts. Step 3 is suggesting solution and researching them. This is about specific actions. It should be acknowledged that it isn't always possible or feasible to determine the cause or causes of the problem or to do anything about them. Clearly, not all causes are controllable by the organization or correctable. Pursuit of solutions to problems that are outside of the control of the organization is a waste of time and resources. If it has been clearly determined that the organization is in a position to address the causes for a particular problem, then the desired end result should be the solution of the problem. In that case, the search for solution should be the primary focus. Even if there is an understanding of the cause, That doesn't have much meaning if nothing is done to change the situation and advance new solutions. This is the task of the effective leader or leaders of the organization. Innovate and invent new ways of achieving improved result on a cost-effective basis. It's it's basically telling us that we should, after defining the problem, gathering information about the problem, we should provide solutions on the problem. Step 4 is evaluating alternatives. It is about evaluating the action or our actions towards the problem. It is important to remember that every alternative action for a particular problem is not necessarily an option to take. It only becomes an option when it becomes a real possibility for action and it would lead to a solution or partial solution to the problem. This involves determining which alternative are most cost-effective and beneficial for solving the problem. To that end, it is often useful to move through a process in which the actions are assigned weights or priorities. The basis for weighing should be how effectively the action is likely to address the cause or causes of the problem and how cost effective it will be. Aside from providing a solutions to the problem, we should also learn to evaluate other options. Parang may plan A ka, if you have plan A, there should be plan B or plan C. Para pag hindi okay or hindi nag-succeed yung plan A mo, pwede kayong mag plan B. From option A, option B, option C. Okay. Step 5 is gaining agreement and commitment. During the previous steps in the problem-solving processes, leadership should build the commitment of those involved. If someone is involved in each step previously discussed, it is much more likely that he or she will agree with the result and commit to implementing them. Sometimes it is useful to craft a memorandum of agreement that outlines and clarifies in writing the result of the problem-solving processes. Each involved member of the process should then sign it, which serves to facilitate commitment to the implementing of the solutions. Okay, once we have the solution plus the alternative solution, we should come up with the agreement and commitment. Both parties must or should understand and agreed on the solution that was provided and commit on making it happen. Step 6, finalizing a course of action, implementation procedures. This is the last one, which is implementing the solutions. Leaders are likely to be called upon to facilitate the implementing of the solution or solutions within the organization. This can be accomplished most effectively by involving others as a means for minimizing resistance to the change likely to occur. At the implementing stage, certain elements of the solution may need to be delegated out to various people inside and outside the group. Group members may also be assigned to implement a particular part of the solution based on their role and decision making or because it relates to their area of expertise. Likewise, group members may be tasked with publicizing the solution or selling it to a particular group of stakeholders. This last step reminds us that once we have the solution, we must implement it. We should delegate it to the people involved so that we will know kung yung solution na nag-come up tayo with is okay. Okay, let's now go to decision making. Decision making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. Using a step-by-step decision-making process can help you make more deliberate, thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information and defining alternatives. In decision making, there are stages involved in it, and we have 10 stages. Let's start with the first one, clarifying and being explicit about the decision that needs to be made. Second, deciding who is responsible for the decision. Third, listing all possible solutions or options. Fourth, setting a time frame. 5. Information gathering. 6. Weighing the risks involved. 7. Deciding on the values and what is important. 8. Weighing the pros and cons of each course of action. 9. Making the decision. And last, communicating the decision. Last part of my report is about facilitation. It is defined as to make things easier, to smooth the process, the progress of, and to assist in making things happen. Facilitation Facilitation is not about forcibly moving things forward. Facilitation is about allowing and creating an environment where things can move forward. Let's go to the benefits of a good facilitator. In conducting meetings, we can say that a facilitator is good when he or she can help the group clarify its goal or decide outcomes. Keep meetings focused on the subject of discussion or on dealing with the problems at hand. Remind participants to consider the broader context of organizational issues. Move meetings along with a timely manner. Use useful small group techniques to work through issues or problems. Periodically summarize the group consensus on issues to validate and clarify the progress of the discussion within the meetings. Help the group move toward achieving useful organizational outcomes in the meeting and give the group a sense of accomplishment. Since we have the benefits of a good facilitator, there are also characteristics of a facilitated leader. First one is he or she does not evaluate or criticize ideas coming out of the group. Enables rather than directs the group process, focusing on a problem solving approach. Knows how to ask questions instead of giving answers. Strive for consensus decision making. Helps the organization move toward becoming a team and achieving useful organizational outcomes. Provides a neutral perspective throughout the team processes. Encourages team behavior in the organization's planning and working. Helps find win-win solutions so that everyone receives benefits. And the last one is make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate and that no one dominates a discussion. And that's all. Thank you.